Um, yeah, last time we have finished the discussion on basic game trees and alpha beta pruning, the minimax alpha beta pruning, and the use of chance nodes. Okay, so today we're going to finish this set of slides on games, and then I'm going to tell you about game projects, the topics and rules there. Okay. Yeah, I'm going to start the recording of today's lecture. Okay, the next topic is games with imperfect information. That means there's some information that you don't know. Okay, it's different from stochastic games. Yeah, so imperfect information is not statistic. It's just hidden to a particular player. So the most common examples are like many card games, such as bridge, uh, where you cannot see the cards in the other's hands. So with the imperfect information, what can we do? Okay, a common way and probably pretty straightforward is treat imperfect information more or less like stochastic or probabilistic distribution, and you try to determine the expectation value. Okay, yeah. So an example is to generate many exemplars for the missing information. So that means you just make guesses, okay, and you guess many times, okay, and then you play from there. Yeah, just uh, more or less like you actually know the information. Yeah, because you make the guess and then play games from there. Yeah, it from the game tree determine the minimax values. Okay, just like it's fully observable. And then you take the average. Yeah, if you want to know the value of an action, you take the average of what the values you compute from this guessed um, fully observable games. Okay, yeah, that's one way of doing it. Sometimes it works, but yeah, it's not always the best results. Okay, why is that? Well, we can think this is doing this kind of exemplar-based estimation of the values of those actions is actually quite different from how a person will actually approach such games. Okay, yeah, I mean persons who have some experience are not completely novice. So with imperfect information, that means some information is hidden. Uh, the decision-making process is different uh, from when the information is stochastic. Okay. So this is an example that I like to use to demonstrate the difference. Um, there's some non-information here when the player or the explorer here has to make a decision. In the first example, um, this is fully observable. Yeah, just assume that we're fully observable. So the explorer has the maps to tell what will happen at the end of each path. Okay. So to make a decision here, let's think what the minimax will say. Okay, from bottom up, in that branch, the minimax will give you this. Okay, yeah, of course you pick the largest one. And so at this choice point, you're going to set to go left. Okay, yeah, because you know this will lead to the best reward, best outcome. Okay. So this is when everything is fully observable. The other is when it's not fully observable. So you don't know what happens at the end of each path. Okay. So it's like if you go right, okay, this is what you're going to get. If you go left, you have 50% chance to get this pile and a 50% chance to get this. Okay. So one is real good, one is real bad. However, at this point, you're not sure which one. Okay, and you have to guess. Yeah. So in that case, if we just use exemplars, okay, then the value of the going left or going the top root here will be the average of those two. Okay, they say there's a value for this, a value for this. Okay, you get an average, okay. And the value of that average may be larger or smaller than this. That depends. Okay, that's 50-50%. However, is that the only way of doing this, or what will a person try to do, a real person, when faced with this kind of situation? Okay. That 50-50% only is actually the case if there's no way that you can get other information. That what you see here in this slide, okay, this picture is exactly everything that you're going to know. Okay, there's no way to get more information in the future. In that case, that's what you're going to do because that's the expected outcome. However, in actual games, that's not the case. Things you don't know now may become known sometime later. Okay, yeah, maybe if you turn here, at some point you're going to be able to see. Okay, like you have some a high point where you can see what's going on, where the path leads to. So that's maybe it's different with imperfect information and statistic games. Okay, yeah. So that's what I want you to pick up here, because with imperfect information, there's still some way, and maybe as the game goes on, you can get more information, which is going to help you get play better. The result, yeah, we cannot follow the intuition, okay, to just use the expected value as 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 the actual value. Okay, yeah. The average might not be actually what you're going to get. Um, we're not going to go through this topic too much, yeah, because there's a number of specialized techniques to do this and the strategies. Okay, but this the information that's not known at this point may be gathered at some later point. Okay, point of time. So the strategy here, instead of just running basic minimax, there are a few things that a player will try to do. Okay, and all of these are related to information. Yeah, one is some action that you do not to gain some points of value, but specifically you do something to obtain information. Okay, yeah, like you play a card to force the other to show something. Okay, yeah, just for you to gather information. And if there are partners like in bridge. Okay, then you can try to pass signals. Those are added information to the partners. Yeah. And then you can try to mislead your opponents, or at least you can hide information. You don't want them to see what you have. So all of these things are try to get a better and advantage on the amount of information you have. Okay, so that's a big part of playing games with imperfect information. Okay. So for this topic, we'll start here. Uh, yeah, the game projects we have are all games with perfect information. You see everything. So we're not going to have game topics in this, but you have to know that, yeah, just remember that's different from stochastic games. And a lot of plays in the imperfect information games is related to gathering the flow of information. You want to get the advantage of information. Yeah. Okay, so this is what I want you to be able to pick up from here. So for the basic games discussion of algorithm and techniques topics, we're going to stop here, and the next set of part of the slides, a dozen or so, are about actual game systems that have been developed and that have been quite famous. Okay. Yeah, because as we said, people love games, and the AI community love games. Yeah, it's how you can have at the same time have fun and try to push the boundary of knowledge. So this is some 20 years ago. Okay, we talk about the state of art then. The big news at that time was Deep Blue from IBM. Okay. That's 1997, and that's when a machine actually beats world master in chess. Yeah, at that time, that's the best known achievement of the classical game playing. Yeah. When we talk about classical game playing, we're talking about basically those are based on the Minimax game tree. Right? Yeah, that game tree exists for many, many years. Okay, maybe 1950s up to the 1990s. Okay, it's still that game tree, although with a lot of tweaks and modification and speed ups and yeah, but that's the basic structure people have. So at that time, that's a big news, as you can see from these historic pictures. Deep Blue is not just system. It's a system, yeah, but it's not just a piece of software or algorithm. Deep Blue is actually real big. Oh, okay. I want to mention that at that time the designer was from Taiwan. Okay, yeah, who worked in IBM. I forgot his name, but still quite famous. Okay. So this is a picture of Deep Blue. It's a real big computer. Yeah, that's a long time ago. So computer chips are not as powerful as what we have now. Yeah, it's a huge computer. It's too bad that Deep Blue the computer was dismantled after the game. Okay, yeah, it wins the game versus that World Master, and then yeah, people just break it up into several pieces. So after that, it just sits in a museum. But at that time, that's something really big. Yeah, the chess is a big achievement. Yeah, because it has a really large professional player community. Okay, yeah, very a lot of players, all those. For games simpler than that, yeah, like this, that's Othello. Okay. Yeah, even if you don't know the English name, you probably should have seen it somewhere. Yeah, on this also on 8x8 board where you just flip white to black or black to white. Those are simpler than chess, and for the simpler games, okay, yeah, computers are already much better than human. So what's the difference? Okay, at that time the difference is about how much you can process that minimax game tree. So simpler games have a smaller game tree, so the power of computational power of that time was sufficient uh, to process much more and much better than humans. And chess was at about that level of complexity. Okay, where the if you push the computational ability at that time, it's about where you can get to human level. Of course, human players do not process the whole game tree. Um, However, actually humans are still better at choosing that how to focus your search and process the most important part. Yeah, humans still do those things better, but computers win by the amount of computation it can do. So at that time, the level of complexity of the game chess was about what computer can achieve. So Deep Blue, um, although it's not, I mean, it's just in the museum now, but uh, still a few things that's not worthy. Yeah, that computer, Deep Blue, was specifically built to play chess. Okay, nothing else but chess. So that's why it's useless after it with that game. Yeah. So basically, it has parallel processing. So every second, it can process that's about 200 million nodes. Okay. And usually, each move can take up to 3 minutes. So in each move, it will process somewhere around 40 billion nodes approximately per second, per move. Yeah. So the structure is minimax with alpha pruning and can go 12 to 14 ply game trees. Okay. When we introduced the game trees, we mentioned that 8 ply game trees. If someone can process 8 ply game trees, uh, that person should be a very good chess player already. Okay. Yeah, 8 ply game trees means that you can think 8 moves ahead. Okay, four by you. You play something and your opponent something, and you something, and opponent something, and da, 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 da. Okay, 8 moves. Yeah, that's actually a lot of brain power used. Okay, so it goes 12 to 14 ply game trees with single extension up to 40 steps. Okay, 40 steps means 20 moves by each player. Okay, now, yeah. And its evaluation function has about 8,000 features. Okay. So many of them are used to cover special cases like some local configurations on the board. Okay, if you have some particular combination, then you have to focus on what kind of evaluation. And also many tunable parameters. Okay, yeah. Um, like different weights of different, the importance of different things, and can even be adjusted to match the opponent's styles. Okay. Actually, this is a point that has been argued or suspected. Okay. Although the IBM team, the Deep Blue team actually denies it, is that in between games, okay, because those professional games, you don't just play, like you play 5 games, you don't just play those in one day, okay. Yeah, you may play 1 game each day. And yeah, it's suspected that the engineers of Deep Blue actually try to adjust some parameters to match that chess master's playing style. Okay, yeah, yeah, that's suspected, but I think they have denied that, and it remains something people are not sure about. Yeah, yeah, but anyway, that evaluation function is really complex, and there are the complete endgame database. Okay, we have talked about if you have very few pieces, you can actually solve the game, grow the whole game tree, and determine the actual optimal move in each of those end game case. Okay, yeah, and it's a dedicated computer with 30 processors, and yeah, as we said, some ICs are specifically designed just for playing chess to compute those evaluation function features real fast. Yeah. Of course, that's at that time, although there are some questions surrounding the accomplishment of Deep Blue, yeah, but that has been real big news at that time. Okay. Yeah. Of course, other than Go, um, there are other more complex games compared to chess. Like Chinese chess, it's usually considered uh, more complex than the basic chess. However, probably because it's not so widely played, like it's worldwide player base. So this, although people continue to study those like Chinese chess or shogi, okay, the Japanese version of chess, um, but they do not get as much popularity or the newsworthy as this Deep Blue thing. But anyway, people have continued to work on this, and because the other major games are related to chess, so yeah, usually the study will follow similar path. On the other hand, Go, okay, Go is Weiqi. Go is a very different type of game. Okay, yeah, it is very different from chess, and with much larger uh, state space. So the game tree is much bigger because of a very huge branch factor. So uh, the focus shifts to game because it's the one type to Go because it's the one type of game where computers still far lagging behind human. Okay, yeah, it's not just losing to professional Go players. Okay, yeah, in those days, even when this Deep Blue or computer chess can beat a world master, okay. Computer Go programs are about the level of someone who just learned Go for like 1 or 2 years, or a few years, yeah, just a few years as an amateur. Yeah, that's about the level that it can get to. Okay. So it stayed that way for years. So the development, particularly when people look at computer Go, is has been kind of stuck. Yeah, because the improvement you can do to simpler games like chess, okay, has difficulty of pushing the the level of play of computer Go. Yeah, because of that really huge branching factor. Yeah, so like yeah, usually people will consider the branching factor of computer Go around 200 to 300. Okay, and for chess, that's somewhere 30 to 40 only. Yeah, so that's a huge difference, and it's very difficult to go any deeper on that game tree. Also, evaluation function on computer Go is also dif- more difficult to get. Yeah, because they are um, basically because a lot of aspects of Go is not so localized. Yeah, yeah. So it's not oh this piece can eat that piece. That's that simple. So that's been the case of computer Go for even after the Deep Blue in 1997, it has still get stuck um, with little progress over the next several years. Yeah, so the main limitations one is large branching factor that force the game tree to be shallow, okay, and very difficult to go deeper. The other is the evaluation function. Yeah, it's more difficult to do evaluation function in computer Go. And yeah, the real progress happened after 10 years after Deep Blue. Yeah, so it's a new algorithm that just jump out and wins everything, takes over. Okay, and that's algorithm beyond classical game tree search. And with that, which we're going to introduce next slide, okay, called the MCTS. Okay, yeah, it's for the first time computer Go can play at a pro human, the level of a professional human player. Yeah, just by changing the way the game tree search is done. So that's a real big difference. And ever since MCTS, which calls the Monte Carlo tree search, okay, Monte Carlo tree search, it's still tree search. However, it's different from Minimax. Yeah, we're going to talk about what's the difference. Um, this type of tree search has been the basics of this the kind of uh, game AI, okay, for the next 10 years or so, yeah, up to the use of AlphaGo. AlphaGo is about 10 years, about 20 years after Deep Blue and about 10 years after the MCTS, after MCTS was introduced. Okay, so during that time, it gets this algorithm or this type of game tree search has pushed the progress of game AIs. So in computer algorithms, um, Monte Carlo is a name that's used to indicate stochastic sampling. Okay. I hope you know that Monte Carlo is a city famous for the casinos. So yeah, people go there gambling, trying to make money. Okay, it's the just like Las Vegas in the North America. Okay, Monte Carlo is for Europe. Okay, yeah. So Monte Carlo, when you see a computer algorithm with the term Monte Carlo, that means is basically there's some random sampling involved. Okay, yeah. Usually, when you cannot get a full model of something like a distribution of some event, okay, probability distribution or something like that, if you cannot get the full picture, okay, Monte Carlo process is something you can do is by sampling it. Okay, if you sample enough times, you get a good approximation. Yeah, that's some basic ideas. Yeah, and in many cases, Monte Carlo methods are applied to something that from a chain, like a chain of actions or chain of events or some chain of something, some kind of features that are interconnected. So you have to search from one and then the other. Okay, a lot of these things. So here we focus on the idea of Monte Carlo tree search. Okay, remember it's still a game tree, just like minimax trees. Okay. In terms of a game tree, it's not that different, but the difference is in terms of the searching strategy is, okay, BFS, the minimax tree is search with, it's called, usually it's a so-called depth limited search. Okay, but yeah, so it can go check every node within a certain depth limit. That's how minimax tree in game tree search is done. Okay, yeah, and in Monte Carlo tree search, the search strategy is a form of best first search. That means when you're doing search, you have to be based on some function that tells you which node is best at that time for this for starting a search. Yeah. So the search or the growth of the tree is not uniform. Okay. Unlike a minimax tree that when you have done the search, the tree is kind of all the leaf nodes are in the same level. Okay. Yeah, the tree basically is very, how should I say it? Okay, very symmetric. Okay, yeah, everywhere the same depth, basically, and unless you have terminal nodes, otherwise the tree is all the same depth. Over here, the tree do not have to be of the same depth, and the better nodes will be checked or searched more thoroughly. Yeah. So you're sampling the tree, and while doing the sampling, um, yeah, it's like sampling the whole game tree. Okay. Yeah. Minimax search trees in the classic game AIs, the minimax search trees are just it's not like a subtree. It's just the top part of the whole game tree. Okay, you cut everything below some depth limit, and you have the top part. That's the minimax game tree. Okay. In MCTS, you sample the game tree. Okay, you just sample it. Okay. With more samples, concentrate on the paths that are more promising, that looks better. Okay. Yeah. So basically, you have to do many samples. Yeah, because each sample just gives you a path in the tree. Okay, from the root down, just one path going down the tree. That's what each sample is. Okay, so you have to sample many times so that you get a better picture of the values of the nodes. Yeah, particularly in game tree search, we're just trying to determine the choice of the next action. So it should be sampled many times that you can get a good estimate. So Next, we're going to talk about some basic steps of the MCTS tree. In each node, usually two things are kept. One is the count of visits. That's how many times a sampled path goes through that node. The other is the value. Okay, the value is like the correct utility functions for everything below that node. Or more generally, in games like, for example, chess. Okay, the value is just win ratio, the ratio of win. If you go down a path through that node, okay, how many times or the percentage of time that you actually win. Okay, yeah. So basically, those are just two numbers. Count of visit maybe, for example, 10. Okay, that means you have 10 paths sampled through that node, and the value, maybe you win those by 8 times. Okay, so 10 out of 8 you win. So the value will be 8 over 10. Okay. So to build that MCTS tree, okay, you need many sampled paths through the tree, and each path, each sampled path is one iteration here. Okay, so the process that you iterate, uh, do many iterations of the same similar process each time you sample a tree. Yeah, but the tree you sampled in later iterations will actually depend on results from the previous samples. Okay, so they are not really independent. Okay. Random sampling is very inefficient. Yeah, so actually we cannot afford to actually do random sampling. Yeah, so the basic idea is that earlier samples will get you some information about maybe some of the paths or some of the nodes seem more promising or seem better than some others in terms of the outcome. So later samples will focus more on those more promising nodes and paths, okay, and try to actually determine whether they're really that good. Yeah. So that's basic idea of MCTS, which we're going to actually touch on later on as the principle of doing search. Okay. But let's just first go through the actual steps in each iteration. Okay, that's for a sample path. Okay, 4 steps called selection, expansion, simulation, and backpropagation. Basically, in the original MCTS, each sampled path has to go end at the terminal state. Okay, you start from the root, that's the current state, and it has to go down until it reaches a real terminal state. Okay, instead of evaluation function like in the regular minimax tree. Okay. So that's a long path actually. Yeah, that may involves tens or hundreds of moves to actually get there. Yeah. So in this path down, there are 2 parts. Okay, 2 parts in this path. Okay, the first part, you're moving along the tree. Yeah, starting from root, you move down the tree. One pass down the tree. The tree is the current game tree. Okay, the current one, not the complete game tree, but just the current uh, state of the game tree. And you're going to reach a leaf node somewhere. Yeah. And but the leaf node basically is not the terminal node. So you have to go from there and you try to find a path to a terminal node. Yeah, that's why this search down has the 2 parts. The first part is in the tree, and the second part is after the leaf node. Okay, the rest of it until the terminal node. Yeah. So the first part is seen in the phase of selection. Okay. Yeah, the selection basically just means you're going down the tree. Yeah, you start from the root, you select a child from its children, and then from that child, if it has more children, you select another child. So just each step down the tree, you have to make a selection of one of the children. That's what you do. And you stop until you reach a leaf node. Okay, so we'll see the picture. The selection may be multiple steps of selection, but you end in the leaf node. Then we'll say the simulation. Right? Simulation is a part that's starting from the leaf node because there is no Morgan tree down below it. So what you do is just try to play a game. Okay. Yeah, it's usually called the roll out or play out. Yeah, you just play a game, a test game. Yeah, anyway, maybe using some real simple rule or something. But you just have to play a game down from there until you actually reach a terminal node. Because what you want is the real utility of that path. Okay, even if it's just a simple, the simulated one. Yeah. And if the game ends in a win or loss, then the simulation will give you a result of win or loss. Then what is the part of expansion? The expansion part phase is used to grow the tree, make the tree bigger if necessary. Okay. Yeah. So expansion is not actually used every time, but it's used when the end of the selection part, okay, you reach a leaf node that has been visited before. That means you have already run a simulation through that leaf node before, at least once. If that has happened before, then that means you have reached the same leaf node the second time. At that time, you have to expand it, means adding its children. So the expansion phase actually grows the tree. Remember, there are two different. Okay. If that leaf node is the first time visited, then you do not need to do expansion. You just start the simulation from there. Okay. If it's visited the second time, then you do the expansion. Because basically, later we will talk about how to choose from a set of leaf nodes. Okay. But basically, if that happens, that the leaf node has been visited it's been visited selected for the second time. That means all its siblings have all been sampled already. So there's no more unsampled and visited leaf node among its siblings itself and its siblings. So that means it's time to grow this part of the tree. Yeah, so there will be expansion in these steps by adding all its children to the tree. And with all those newly added children, you have to do one more step of selection. But because all those children are there's no value associated with them. Okay, they're all newly generated nodes. So you just randomly pick one, basically. Pick one from children. Okay. Yeah, so that's what you do if you need to do expansion. And after the simulation, you get some result. Okay, you get the score or you get the Windows result, whatever. You will backpropagate that from where? From that leaf node where you start the simulation, and from that back up until you reach the root. So the information is shared with everybody, every node on the path. Okay, you have to update the counter visits. Okay, to add one to everyone, and the value. Okay, win or loss or whatever score you want to update. Yeah, so this is what people do with the use the MCTS. This is the basic structure of it. Okay. Yeah. For the comments here, of course, for the opponent's nodes, because just like Minimax tree, yeah, different layer of the tree maybe correspond to you or your opponent. So for the opponent, you have to select from the opponent's perspective, just like in the Minimax tree. And another thing is that you can see that the tree will grow bigger and bigger and bigger. Yeah, but it's an anytime algorithm. That means you have to, yeah, you can stop anytime. Yeah, yeah, and at that time choose the most promising, what appears the best action from your root node. Yeah. So how many samples to, yeah, how many iterations or how many samples to do in the tree uh, do not need to be fixed. Okay, if you have more time, you can do more, and of course the estimation or the final choice will be, you'll be more confident on that. But if you don't have enough time, you can do fewer samples. Okay, yeah, this part is actually different from your minimax tree. Your minimax is steps limited, but the um, order of search is steps first. Okay, so if you just cut at some point of time to stop the search, you probably just, for example, you have searched the first half of the tree, but the second half you have know nothing about. Okay, you haven't touched that yet. Yeah, that's a part of the classic depth limited search. Okay, but for MCTS, basically it covers the whole tree. Yeah, just grow different parts maybe at different rate. Yeah, but basically it covers the whole tree, all the possible actions from the root down. So it can be an anytime algorithm. That means you stop anytime. Okay, your time limit is about to be up. So you need to generate the action, a choice of action. Yeah, and then you can stop there and do that. Yeah, so that's another advantage of MCTS. Yeah, so we'll take a short break here and we'll come back at 2:20. Yeah, if you have questions, you can post on the message board. Okay. Yeah, I think we'll continue now for the second hour of this class. Okay, I'll start the recording. Okay. So we have already introduced the steps in the MCTS iteration, and actually the tree is growing bigger and bigger. Not one node, but on average, it will be one node per sample. Okay, although not all simultaneously. Yeah. And another thing is that the best action eventually, when you start the tree search, you need to select an action from your root node. Okay. And basically, the best action returned, this is the pretty standard approach, is the one with the most visits. Okay. Yeah, why the most visits? Okay. Intuitively, we may think that the one returned should be the one returned or the selected should be the one with, for example, the highest win ratio of winning the game. Okay. Yeah, intuitively that's the case. However, um, that's not always the best choice because that ratio of winning, if you just compare two ratios, yeah, maybe one with smaller denominator. Okay, like in one case, um, you win like 3 out of 5 games. Okay, for the other node, you might win like 11 out of 20 games. Okay, so for the first one, you have 60% chance of winning. For the second one, it's 55% chance of winning. When you compare the two, the first one seems better if you just compare the ratio of winning the game. Okay, that's 60%. However, with just 5 samples, actually you're not so confident on that. Okay, so there's a large margin of possible error there. Okay, the other actually have more samples. So first, you're more confident on the estimated uh, value. Um, Second, with more winning, okay, with more win, actually, with more samples, yeah, actually, in MCTS, that basically means it has appeared more promising more through the whole sampling process. Yeah, because as we have said, in MCTS, okay, subsequent selection of sampled pairs are affected by previous samples. Okay, so if a pet is sampled more times, okay, that generally means it has appeared better more often. Yeah, so as a result, um, going with the one with the most visits actually is more reliable choice, a more reasonable choice. Okay, instead of selecting one with maybe appear a good score but not real good confidence because there are fewer samples. You select one that more samples and yeah, just appear. You can be more confident on that. Yeah, but these are just a discussion of general ideas, and we're going to dig a little bit into the fundamental concept behind that. And this concept called exploitation versus exploration is fundamental to all kinds of exhaustive search. Okay. If you have an exhaustive search, then you don't worry because you can find the absolutely best choice, okay, from all your options. However, if uh, exhaustive search is not critical, then that means uh, you can only check a subset of all the options. So there's always a question that how do you find a good one among that limited subset for which you can check? So we have to think about the exploitation, the exploration. Uh, Basically, in the search, you have to go a few steps down, right? One step followed by another step by another step. Yeah, like in the game tree search, each time you have to go down the tree, one move, then another move, another move. Yeah. During that process, each time you have a path, and the exploitation is to choose the path that appears best. Okay. Um, or in other ways, that's very similar to the greedy algorithm. Yeah, you just choose the one that appears best at the time. That's the concept of exploitation. Exploration means that um, you try a non path, okay, path that you're not so familiar. So the purpose exploration is more to get a broader knowledge about your options. Okay, um, that way you have a chance to get huge rewards, or yeah, you may lose everything. Okay, so exploitation is to follow something that you are more confident about the outcome. Okay, but the outcome might not be all that good. Okay. So exploration means you should try different things. Yeah, you may find better options. Well, that's just a concept of the tool. Okay, so they have different objectives, and both have to be considered um, in when you're doing searching. Okay, because uh, the search is not exhaustive because you have finite resource, like finite time, using which you have to finish the search and make a decision. Okay, a finite amount of resource you can use to do this. Okay, if you use all those on exploitation, okay, you find something and you stick with it. Yeah, you basically that's for the wasting of your opportunities. Okay. But if you it's all about exploration, then you might try many different things. But just of everything. Yeah, that's exploration, full exploration. So those are two extremes. The typical strategy is to do more exploration in the beginning, yeah, because that's basically to gather information. In the beginning, it's assumed that you know nothing about your problem or the state space. Okay, so you have to try, okay, gather information. What part is actually better than the other? Okay, what part of the state space is more promising? Okay, appear better and appear worse, and so on. Okay, so once you have more idea, okay, during the initial exploration stage, uh, then you can do more exploitation after that. Okay. So that's the idea of exploitation and exploration is fundamental to all those non-exhaustive search. Um, yeah, you can see such things in many different places. Okay, like when training a neural network, for example, or anything that, for example, use gradient descent or something similar. Okay. Each update of the network parameter is like a step in the search. Okay, you're searching among all the possible networks with different parameters, and each update is just one step. So exploration means you have to do bigger steps. Okay, so usually in the beginning, the learning rate or the update step size is actually large. Okay, and eventually, when you think you have found a relative good place and you want to have good convergence, you will use exploitation. Okay, you focus on the small region with small step size to find the exact best combination, something like that. So these two are actually in all kinds of search algorithms. Okay. Yeah. And then after introducing the concept, we're going to see how it works with MCTS. The decision that needs to be made is during the selection stage, right? The selection phase of going down the tree. Okay? The tree that's already there, but you have to select the child nodes, one of the child nodes in each step of that selection stage. Okay. Yeah. So the way the selection is made as a combination of exploitation versus exploration. And that comes from a very classic problem. It's called the multi-armed bandit problem. If you're curious what that is, I'm not sure whether you have seen these kind of machines. Okay, they're everywhere in the casinos. Okay, and basically you just each time you insert the coin and you pull a handlebar and it will something and then you will either get the reward or get nothing. Okay, like those famous 777s, and they get the jackpot. Okay. Those are slot machines. If you just have one slot machine, then everything is just probabilistic, and there's nothing to study about. But the interesting thing is the problem that you have multiple slot machines, and each one has some different but unknown chance of rewards. Okay, maybe one of the machine will has a reward ratio of like 90%. Another is just 80%, and maybe another is 95%. Okay, of course, those are the expected values of the reward ratio. Yeah, but yeah, just say each machine is different. So if you're facing a set of machines, the way to maximize your reward is to find the one with the highest reward ratio. Okay, yeah, but to do that, um, because the ratio is unknown to start with, so you need to try everyone. Okay, now you have a limited amount of money that you can play with. Okay, and you want to get the max possible reward from that initial part of money. Okay, so you have to allocate some of that to the trial. You have to try each machine, right? At least once for each. Yeah, and in the case of star machine, you might need to try at least several coins for each machine to get the feel of the reward percentage of that machine. And then if some of them looks more promising, is more likely to give you good rewards, then you will focus your later the tries on those machines. Okay. So the idea is the multi-armed bandit problem, which is the basis of many search cases. Okay, you want search that want to maximize your expected total reward in this case. And well, there's some theoretical derivation which we're not going to cover. But well, the result there obtained for such a problem is actually used as the standard function to do node selection in MCTS. Okay, that function is called the UCV function, called upper confidence bound. Okay, yeah. This function is used as a utility function to compare nodes. Okay, or you can say compare the start machines or compare the child nodes, or the children of a particular node. Okay, you compare its children to decide which one to select. This function has two terms. One is called the exploitation term, which is so far the current value or the current reward ratio from the previous trials, okay, from that node, from that machine or that node. Okay. The other term is the exploration term, okay, which favors nodes or machines that have fewer trials previously. Okay, so inside there's the ratio of two things. Okay, the n is all the trials. Okay, yeah, and this is the trial for that particular node. The number of trials for that particular node. So if this term is small, then the term, this exploration term will be larger. That means that node will have a higher possibility to be selected. And if that denominator is 0, that means it's a node that has never been tried before. So in that case, it will be selected because this is infinity. Right? Yeah. So every time there's one child node that has not been tested, it will be selected according to the UCV function. Okay. And as both these two terms grow larger and larger, okay, that means you have many trials, you have gained a lot more information, but you can see that this term will become small because the denominator just grow as log, okay, but the denominator grow linearly. So as a result, this term will approach 0. Okay, when it approaches 0, you're focusing on the exploitation term when n is really large. Okay, so this UCV function naturally adjusts the relative importance of exploitation versus exploration. Okay. That's an example of a resulting MCTS tree that I can find on the web. Okay, so some of the paths are deeper, some are shallower. Yeah. The deeper ones means there's more exploitation there because the results have been more promising. Okay. So eventually, the MCTS tree is very asymmetric. Okay. When you see something like this, yeah, it goes deep, means that actually, because if it can actually go deep here, okay, that means many nodes are already expanded here. So this part of this tree can be more promising than some of the other part of the trees. So a scheme tree or whatever tree grown by MCTS is usually highly asymmetric. Okay, it's not something balanced. There are parts of the tree that are much deeper than the other parts, and that's exactly what's good about the MCTS. Okay, because if some part of the tree that after a few trials you find it's just not good, okay, then that part of the whole tree will be checked less and less frequent, and you don't waste your time out there. Okay. those part of the tree. So with the same amount of information about resource, with the same amount of resource, you can actually check some depths much deeper than like in Minimax. Okay, so that's our introduction of MCTS, and in today's time, I have about 25 minutes left. I think for the lecture, I'm going to stop here for a bit because the future next and rest of the set of slides are about some just overview of some more famous game AIs. But probably does not really affect what we're going to do in the project because it's too advanced. So I'm stopping the lecture here of the slides at this point, and I'm going to introduce the two games that I will have you do game AIs in this semester. Okay, there will be two games. The first is more like a board game, and the second is more like a real-time game. Okay, and of course they are both based on existing games. Okay, the first one is a newer one, so maybe not everyone has heard of this. The game is called Battleship. Of course, this version of Battleship will not be exactly as the version that you're going to get from a store or something like that. Yeah, or I heard there are actually like apps that will play this. Okay, yeah, but of course the version is modified, um, but some basic rules are the same. Okay, so if you're not so sure about the introduction of the rules, you can check the just Google the actual game and to look that up. Okay. So for the actual game, you have the first part is to compose that each player will contribute to composing the playing field. Yeah, but in this version that we're going to play, the playing field is actually given. Okay, and initiated random. So what you see here, okay, each circle is a cell of the field. Okay, yeah. Or instead, actually each circle is a field itself, but I'm changing the terminology here. So that's the field. Each one is a cell of the field. Some of them are actually places the ship can go. You see, those are the white ones, and there will be 64 of them. Okay, yeah. So basically, your purpose is to occupy more of the cells for your ship. Okay, so this is a 4-player game. Okay, so each player starts with 16 ship from one cell, and you try to move your ship around to occupy more spaces. So in some way, this is a little bit of the space control type of game. There are several of these. Okay, a space control type of game. Yeah, in some way, a little bit similar to Go. Yeah. Um, yeah. So this type of game is different from like chess. where your purpose is to capture the opponent's king. Yeah, if you can capture that, you win. Okay, so that's two different. Yeah, that's the fundamental difference. So here, the purpose is to control the space. The more you can control, the higher your score. Yeah, and your ranking is determined by that. And so each player has 16 ship. Okay, to start with, 4 players, so there are 64 ships and 64 sails. Yeah. So initially, each player has to place all the 16 ships in one sail. Yeah, and that sail has to be a boundary sail. That means, like the example, if that's the configuration of the field, then those yellow ones are the boundary sails. Okay. So this is the example initial condition with the 4 players initialized at the 4 boundary sails. Okay, you have to choose the first place to put your ship. Okay, and then making turns. Okay, in each turn, a player has to move from one of the pile. You divide it by 2, and you move. So each the set of ship in each you divide by 2 subgroups. Okay, you move one subgroup to another cell. Okay, and that cell you have to move as far as it can go, so you cannot stop in between. For example, from here, if you want to move along this direction, then that subgroup has to stop. You cannot stop in the middle. Okay, you have to go as far as it can go, like it's blocked by another group of ship. Okay, so you move along empty cells until you have to stop. Okay, yeah. So you have to decide on the direction and on how many ship to move. Okay, so and similarly for this player, that's okay. You move part of it. Okay, it's at the end. Okay, because that's outside of the field. Okay, so the rules, no stopping in between, and you cannot hop over occupied cells. Yeah. So you repeat this process each time you pick the group of ship in a cell, and you split them, and you repeat this until at the end nobody can do any more of this. Okay. For example, this is the final configuration. Okay. Yeah. The numbers are just the number of ship in that cell, and I use the color to represent the player. So this is end of game. Nobody can move anymore. Okay, and at the end of game, okay, we have to compute the score of each player, and this is the formula I give. Okay, first is the number of occupied cells. Okay, yeah, and times by 3. Okay, and then add the size of the largest connect region of a player's cells. Okay, so the second condition term is to favor region the connectedness. Okay, if your ship are not so scattered, but they are as connected as possible, yeah, you get a little bonus on your scores. So here, what you get is the scores, and you get the ranking for that game. Yeah. So, of course, when we do the final evaluation, each submission will get the chance to play many games, and yeah, it's going to accumulate the rankings. Okay, that's your points, and yeah, that will become the final rank of that AI. Okay. So this is a game of battleship. Yeah, our version of battleship. Okay. The other game, yeah, um, Pac-Man is about as classic as arcade games as you can get. Okay, yeah. So this is arcade game which basically require a very fast response time. That you cannot try to make very complex decisions. As a result, minimax trees might not be a good idea here, and you have to think about different ways of doing it. This version of Pac-Man, again, it's not the standard version, but it's a multiplayer Pac-Man, where each time I will place 4 players in there. Also, the board is randomized each time, so it's impossible to follow a fixed path. Okay, like if you play the real arcade games and your experience with that, you probably have designed and memorized the best option or path for each level. Okay, but not here because each time the board uh, is the play field is randomized. Okay. And there are a few differences from the original Pac-Man. Okay. Of course, there are still pellets, but they are also randomly located. Okay, and you can eat those pellets. And there are power pellets. If you eat a power pellet, you get the superpower to eat the ghost. Okay. And I also add something called the landmine. Okay, landmine is something you can collect and then drop. A drop landmine can use to deter either ghosts or other players. Okay, or yourself if you step on it by yourself, you will be deterred as well. Okay, so those are a few different elements, and you have to decide. Okay, like if you collect landmine, you can decide where and when to place it. There are the central 2x2 region, that's the hub. Okay, the hub is a safe zone, so nobody is anybody here, even if there's ghost and the players. Okay. Basically, when we start, there are a total of 4 players and 4 ghosts. Okay, so a round means a board like this. It ends when all the regular pellets, those small ones, are already eaten. Okay. After that, the new round is initialized, and everything ends when a finite duration, which I said at 5 minutes. Yeah, and see who gets the highest score. The time clock here I said is 0.05 seconds. That means there are 20 time ticks or time steps per second. As a result, you have to make faster decisions or actions or whether to do any actions or not. Yeah, and that will be the challenge here. In this slide, there are some just more specific rule. Okay, because there's a game board coordinate. Okay, so over here, that's a cell, that's a cell, that's a cell. But your motion is actually will appear more continuous. That you do not just hop from one cell to the next. Okay, realistically, you have to move along. So each cell is actually divided into 25 by 25 points, and you move along those 2 center lines. Okay, so you hop from one point to the other. Both players and the ghost have to move along the center lines. And with different velocity. Okay, yeah. The ghost and the player in regular mode, that's move 5 points per time step. So that means in 5 time step or 1/4 of a second, you can go move through a cell. Okay, so the speed is 4 cells per second regularly. But if you're in power mode, that means you you have eaten a power pellet. Yeah, you can move faster, and you can use that to chase down the ghost. Yeah, and then there are some prayer motion. The rules are similar to the original one. Okay. Yeah, basically the command, the action command you can press is either to turn left or turn right or reverse. Okay. But yeah, you cannot change your speed, and you don't need to say you want to eat something because that's automatic. Yeah, but you have to make the provide the action command when the command is valid. If you say turn left, it has to occur at the point, a cell where you can turn left. There are a number of other rules, include how the points are counted and how do we determine that. For example, if you eat a pellet or you when ghost, okay, you eat a ghost or ghost eats you. Yeah, that has to be something to determine the overlap. Okay, so this overlap range will have the cell size of the cell, and then the point counting. Okay, each regular pellet 10 points. Okay, and the power pellet itself has no point, but you get into the power mode for it. Okay, 200 times steps, that means 8 seconds. Oh no, 10 seconds, you have 10 seconds. Okay, or until the end of the current round. Okay. Or if you step on an active landmine. Okay. And during that time, you can eat the ghost. Okay. Yeah, you can chase them. But that's just for you, okay? And not for any other players. Okay, so the other players are just still in their regular mode. Okay. Yeah, the landmine you just collect it the first time you overlap with it, and then you keep it until you want to press it. So to press the landmine is also a command that you have to do. Okay. Yeah, if you drop it, okay, so whoever steps on the landmine has to, yeah, it dies, and the rebirth is at the center region after 5 seconds. Yeah. So whenever you get eaten by a ghost or you step on landmine, you have to stay in the center region, that hub, for 5 seconds. Similar for a ghost that's eaten by a player in power mode. Okay. Yeah, so those are the basic conditions. Okay, and the overlap between players has no effect. So basically, the interaction between players, one is through the landmine, the other is just how you affect the ghost. Because when you chase a ghost, the ghost may change its direction of motion, and that may affect the other players. Otherwise, it's just see who can collect more points during a round. Okay. So these are the basic rules of the games that you're going to work with. Okay. This set of rules will be posted on E3 today or tomorrow with a little more instructions on how the actual assignment will be handled, like the submission, and then before the final submission, you can still submit your programs that the TAs will run to get some current, like a leaderboard kind of thing. Okay, the ranking of the AIs. You can submit multiple versions of those. Okay, and there's a ranking, and you can see the win loss rate, cumulative score, that kind of thing. The details, again, will be posted maybe later this week. But the introduction of games here is just so that you can know what we want you to do and start thinking about those. Yeah, including if you want to compose some rule-based strategy, you can start do that. Okay. Also, the TAs have prepared some code templates. Okay. Basically, there will be server and the client templates with communication between the server and the client. Okay. What you're going to code is part of the client that actually in each call, what you need to do is to process the game state, okay, the condition for that time provided by the server, and to generate, if any, a command or action, the selection of an action. Okay. And there's always a time limit that will be set. Yeah, like in the Pac-Man version, the time limit will be 0.05 seconds. So you have to make a decision first, or the game will just proceed without waiting for your decision. So that's what we're going to do here. Yeah, so the TAs are doing the packaging of those things, including NPCs, that because these are all 4-player games, so you need NPCs to help with your development. Okay, yeah, you can try your own program with those NPCs, although they're generally very simplistic. Okay, yeah. Also, the language of coding, you can use C++ or Python. Okay, so for the client template, again, the TS will prepare both for both. Okay, for both. Yeah. And then you could just choose one version of it. Okay, so there will be the two games, and there will be you work on those two simultaneously. Okay, and that's group. Okay, so because there are two games, the whole process will, as planned, will go like 6 weeks. Okay, before the deadline. Okay, so you have some time, and you can move around one game or the other. Okay, to adjust your schedule during this time. Okay, so that's the introduction of the games. Any questions? Okay, if you don't have questions, yeah, then we're ending today's class here. And what you need to do, yeah, I'm posting the discussion board on E3 now. So what you need to do is to post your groups there. Okay. Yeah, the idea is the same group for both game projects. Okay. Okay, so if no question at the end of class, and remember to post to the discussion board of your groups.